Hello everyone, my name is Karthik and you're watching my YouTube channel. So this is another series of clean architecture. So we'll create in this session, we'll create architecture and the project architecture. So we'll see the demo as well as create a architecture only. The next session in this series, there's a could be a many session to create one by one like the all the layers because there is a 3 to 4 layers, so we'll create architecture here and then implementation will create one by one. So let's get started to demo. So see, there's a already we have created API with using clean architecture. So I implement one endpoint like get endpoint, post endpoint, everything. So let's check it. Okay, so it is same whatever we done. So like see, all data coming from that our in the database. Okay, so SQLite entity framework we are using over here. So let's see the architecture. So here the I created actually like this UI interface and see that like that image. Okay, so that the UI interface as well as your domain layer, then application layer and in infrastructure layer. Okay, so these are layer actually for the basic clean architecture example for this actually. So there is a advanced, also there is a advanced level that we can use CQRS pattern and then with this mediator R, that domain driven approach actually. So that will create on a next series, but this series actually for understanding for initial level so that you can understand very well, okay, how we can create a clean architecture. Okay, also in this the last also we'll create a Docker image, how we can create the Docker container for this for this architecture as well, and how we can create a container and then deploy without writing any code and stuff. So that is also a great feature come in Visual Studio that also end of the session will show you in this series. Okay, so let's move start. Okay, to create this architecture and stop this one. Okay, and move it to here and open the Visual Studio. So before Visual Studio, open the Studio. For the scratch actually we'll create one by one everything. So in this session only we'll create architecture so that video should not long. Okay, so remove this one. So create next for first actually we'll create here UI. Okay, so also there is a solution, so we can create a solution as well. Solution, there's no solution, so let's leave it that part. Also just create a anything I guess, then we can remove it. Okay, so what we can do, use that .NET Core Web API. Okay, use that because we are using interface. So I was thinking Core API. Just you can find over here. Also, you can just choose whatever your recent project. Okay, and also just because I have because I many time I created. That's why the recent project would be Core API using over here. Next, now change it to like clean clean architecture, clean architecture. Okay. Uh, meeting that name, clean architecture, that full name architecture. And what I was thinking, some specific name because already I created, so might be not conflict. So yeah, clean architecture, that's fine. And dot, this is API interface, so that's API. And then we can create we can remove that API because our solution name only that clean architecture. Okay, there's a many layers, so that's why solution name is a clean architecture, but layer is like clean architecture API, clean architecture domain, clean architecture dot infrastructure, clean architecture others. So let's create. Okay, this is .NET 7 and use the controller based approach. Okay, I already showing that video how we can create a API. So you can check out and see. Now this is our API user interface. So as of now, just we can remove it or we can keep it, okay, because it is a our final layer user interface. So we'll discuss about that when we implement, so when we'll discuss about it. So before that actually, so what is that clean architecture, so that we have to know actually. So let little bit understand what is that clean architecture, okay. So then we'll can proceed, like we'll create that architecture as well. Okay, so clean architecture is a software design pattern that aims to create a modular and maintainable codebase by separation, concern, and dependencies. It's promote the separation of the concern through multiple layers and enforce boundaries between them. In this response, I will provide an overview of clean architecture. Okay, and so these are the about the clean architecture. Okay, so let's talk about little bit of the principles. So if I remove this, okay, and okay, so let's understand like what are the principles. Okay, so there is a many principle actually. So there's a 4 to 5 principles for this clean architecture. So let's talk about first one, like separation of the concern. Okay, so the code base is divided into distinct layer, each with its own responsibility and concern. Okay, the second principle is dependency rules. So dependencies flow inward, meanings outer layer to do not depend in inner layer. Okay, so whatever you saw ever image, right? So these are two type of layer, like inner layer and outer layer. So that is not dependent actually. So these allows for easy replacement or modification of the component. So very easy to replace the component. And the third one is abstraction on over the implementation. So interface and abstraction are used to define contracts and decoupling high level modules for the low level details. Okay, this is another good principle. And now other one is the testability. So in this layer actually, in this architecture, the unit testing by enabling isolated testing or components at different level. Okay, so now fifth or final one is the dependency of framework. So the core business logic is not dependent on any specific framework or library, so making it more portable and maintainable. So that will when implement, so let's that time we'll understand definitely. So these are the principles. Okay, so let's do that. Okay, so now start. Okay, before we start, let's see that image. Okay, so that clean architecture is a that onion view. Okay, so this is an onion view, and you can see there's a main is a common centric, domain centric design. It is a like in a main, center is a domain, and then applications, and then inner layer is a user interface, and then that outer layer is a user interface, and then persistence layer and infrastructure layer. Okay, so these are actually the clean architecture is work like this way. Okay, so let's move start to create a project. Okay, so already UI interface is created, so now move it to now create is a uh, domain layer. So let's create a new project. Okay, so choose any class library, choose .NET or .NET standard both. So next, and this is copy dot, it is a domain layer. So first would be your domain layer. Next, next. Okay, so remove that. So once I implement, then I'll explain also like what is the domain layer. Okay, so now I just creating this session, only just creating the architecture, that's it. The next session will implement one by one, like first I implement a domain layer, then other layer, then other layers. Okay, so let's create another one that is called actually uh, infrastructure layer. So me bring that. Okay, let me choose class library again. Next, and then copy dot infrastructure layer. Okay, so just put the name infrastructure layer. Next, next. Okay, so these also done. Okay, remove that extra default template infrastructure. Then finally, our layer which is interact our UI, that is application layer. So just create another can call is the application layer. So just call class library, then copy dot application, right? Applications. Okay, so this is application layer. Okay, now create and delete. Okay, so this is actually our final architecture. Okay, this is UI interface as we saw in our that onion view. So this is application layer, this is domain layer, and this is infrastructure. So those are will go to great details in next session, like you know how what are the dependency, which layer and the dependent to another layer. Okay, and then finally we'll actually implement in a user interface once it's completed. Also we implement many stuff. So thank you for watching this series on clean architecture. We'll meet the next session with this implementation of that domain layer. Okay, thank you. Have a nice day, and please don't forget to subscribe. Hello everyone, welcome back another session, this series clean architecture. So this session will create we'll understand like what is domain layer and what are stuff need to implement, okay, in this domain layer. And if you know about that green architecture, so I'll especially recommend before to come this series the second part, you have to check out my YouTube channel, and also I'll share this link to here, like how we can create that architecture. Okay, so we'll in previous session I already create the architecture. Okay, now we'll talk about the domain layer. Okay, so what is the domain layer? So first we have to understand like what are the domain layer and what is the in this layer actually content. So this layer represent the core business logic of the applications, and it is depend of others layers and contains domain models, entities, interface, and domain services. So a little bit if confused, so don't worry, I'll implement as well, so that then definitely will clear everything. Okay, so remove that one, let's start to implement. First we'll implement actually our domain entity. Okay, so what is that our domain entity? So create a folder entity. Okay, entities entities. Okay, so this is the entities. Okay, and then create a one entity that called is blog. Okay, and then public. Okay, so whatever our properties we have to bring that, like for example id. Okay, that name also fine. Oh, sorry, that name, then description, then author, then finally you think yes, whatever property, just domain, learning perspective. So you, okay, sorry, this could be a string, then it is just get rid a blank space line. Okay, so this is done. Now second we'll create in this layer actually our core business logic. Okay, so now second it is our repository. Okay, so repository not like interface call as a interface. Okay, so this interface actually will create a one repository. Okay, so that repository actually here that declaration only will keep it the declaration, because this is a core logic, will keep it then domain a core logic. So implementation would be in our infrastructure layer. So let's call I, or let's call as the interface only, and I log repository cs. Okay, so our repository is ready. Let's change it to public to internal to public. Okay, and then just some declaration method over here to get post delete. Okay, so the bring the code, because this is a straightforward step, so I not writing or wasting our time or taking this video too long. Okay, so just simple, the using task and list of the blog, get all async task, get y the id task, created async task, just return the id and update and delete. Okay, this is straightforward. Okay, so this is done for this domain layer, nothing we have to do over here. Okay, so thank you for watching this session, and please don't forget to subscribe. We'll meet our next session. We'll create we'll implement, actually the next layer would be our infrastructure layer. Okay, so thank you, have a nice day. Hi, hello everyone again, welcome back again to my channel, and this is another session of this clean architecture. So this session will implement an infrastructure layer. And if you come first time in this session, so in this series, so definitely I'll recommend to before to proceed this one, so you have to know like, okay, how we can create a domain layer and how we can create a project architecture. So I'll share this link in this video. Okay, so go to check out and first learn and understand like what is that, then proceed to this. So moving start to next, like, okay, how we can infrastructure layer implement. So first we have to understand what is infrastructure layer. Okay, so if infrastructure layer, this layer provide implementation of the external dependency such as a database and external services or third-party libraries. Like we'll show the example as well, like we using entity framework or SQLite. Okay, with the SQLite, so those are implementation should be here only. Okay, so that our core is not dependent anything, so that a third party stuff. So and then other is it is depend on the domain application layer. So this domain is a depend to here, actually this infrastructure, and it contain data access implementation, repository, and external service client and other infrastructure specification components. Okay, so these are the you know no like, okay, so just read it and just start the implementation. So what are okay, so let's create a folder of that data. So first we have to implement the db context. So just install data. Okay, so data, and now create a db context class. So that create a class db context. Okay, so it is called actually blog db context text. Okay, okay, so before do that, I think there's some dependency also, some project packages dependency, because if I trying to implement entity framework or database stuff SQLite, so definitely some packages is required. Okay, so let's add some packages, and let's bring that namespace. Actually two packages are required, two or three packages. So first is required entity framework, entity framework. Okay, so entity framework core, just install this one, accept. Okay, this is done. Then other one is required tools. Okay, so just install the tools so that actually we can add, update, delete, add migration, update migration, we can perform in these tools. This is also almost done. And now final is required is SQLite, because this time we using SQLite provider, so that's why it's SQLite. So install this. Okay, and now I think almost, yeah, so these are three packages is required. So let me zoom it so that while you implement, so can check out. Okay, so yeah, these three packages. So entity framework core, core SQLite, tools. Okay, so now it's done. Dependency means that package is done. And what we can do, we can just start the implementation. So for db context, we can inject, we can inherit the db context. So db text. Okay, so db text, bring the namespace. Okay, it is entity framework. And now, okay, also make it public, and create a constructor. Oh, sorry, create a constructor, not a property. So ctor. Okay, and then we have to actually inject, sub db context option. Okay, text option, and just point out whatever our context class in this db context. Okay, so it is a part of actually entity framework, so it is not a related any uh, clean architecture stuff. So if you don't know about that entity framework, so definitely I recommend to go to our videos, means our YouTube channel, and check out like what is the entity framework and how we can implement. Okay, so let's create a db set, so that whatever our db set blog, our blog, so bring that namespace. Okay, before bring the namespace, okay, because this is a part of domain layer. Okay, so that reference is required, so just add some reference. Okay, so that we can we can we can implement our stuff over here. So just domain layer. Okay, just add the domain layer, and then just bring that namespace. Yes, so this is done. Also just blocks. Okay, so db set also created, so that based on this db set actually our table will create, update, delete everything, based on the db set. Okay, so this is done. Block context is done. Now we have to create one repository for the implementation. So we create in the domain layer, see the interface. Okay, so this repository we have to implement in the infrastructure layer. So what we can do, we can create a folder that's called its repository, right? Repositories. Okay, and just create a blog repository. Okay, blog repository. Okay, public. Okay, I think name is, oh, so just rename it, because the name is not correct actually. Repository. Okay, so this is correct. Okay, so rename it. So right click, this is a Visual Studio is a great feature to right click. If you right click, so everything will be changed. Okay, from the class name as well the file name. Okay, so let's start the implementation. Before, just bring iBlog iBlog repository, and that implement that okay, the implement, start the implement. So click implement interface, so all the default implement it will showing over here. So let's start. So before I start, I think we have to create inject actually our db context class, so that we can whatever perform we have to do, we can do easily over here. So let's db context class inject over here. So blog db context is, and just create a property and assign to over here so that I can use it. Okay, so I'm not writing a code for insert, update, delete everything. Just I have a ready to ready. I have the sample, so just copy paste so that we can save our time. Okay, just first create, implement that create what I explain actually, and just change it to async because I use the await. So await, and just change to this guy to this guy. Okay, and also change our db set name. So what was the db set? So db set means blogs, and just we have what is we to use the add method. Okay, this is the entity framework actually provide that method, entity framework core, and just pass that entity, whatever entity, so it will add it, and then finally save change, so db will be saved. Okay, so this is straightforward. Now change is to delete. So let's just implement start for delete. Okay, same thing we have to do. A change to our db context name. Okay, whatever our inject over here, also just async. Okay, and then this is also just change to blog. Okay, and then return, and finally execute method. So this execute method coming also entity framework, so let's bring that namespace. Okay, this namespace also bring over here, and finally delete also done. Similar fashion we have to do in our get call. So let's start to get async and change it to this one, like, because in previous demonstration I think I created wrong name. So this is a right name, simply our things, and then get all the blocks to list async. Okay, this is simple. And then one more stuff like this. Okay, and then make it async as a, and change it to, okay, the change it to this. Okay, our injected value, our db context, and then as a node tracking, actually this is a method called as a node tracking, so that we can't track anything. Okay, and just call a first and default, and based on the comparing we returning the blocks. Okay, and then final one we have to update actually. So let's update. Okay, change it to async, put as the async, and change it to same. Okay, so yes, now it is also simple. Like we first fetch that the db set and data set, and then find the model, that whatever entity, and based on the find the entity, we just set, okay, set property in this, and but this one is not required. I think we have to do this way. Okay, just only set this, like name, description, author, and this and so on. So we have to update this step only, or we can, okay, just leave it. There's just some bug, we'll fix it. Okay, so okay, now implementation also done. Okay, so this is done, and okay, this is done, but yeah, migration as of now also it is a dependent some migration stuff. Okay, so that will done once I actually complete this whole stuff. But yeah, for the layer wise, this is complete actually. The infrastructure layer only just we have to create a context thing stuff, and then all the packages we can bring out, and we can implementation. Okay, so this is done for infrastructure. So next session will come, we'll learn like, okay, we'll implement the application layer. Okay, how we can create a application layer, and finally we'll consume our API. Okay, so thank you so much, have a nice day. Please don't forget to subscribe and like and share. Okay. Hello, welcome back again to my channel. So this is a same series of clean architecture. So we have implement domain layer. Okay, we have implement infrastructure layer. So now we'll implement actually application layer. So what is application layer? Actually, it is a part of core layer. So we first understand like what is that application contain actually layer. So this layer contain application specific business logic and coordinates the interaction between the presentation layer and the domain layers. Okay, and it is dependent the domain layer, and it's contain use cases, application service and mappers. Okay, so it is, we can call purely the abstractions layer, so that our UI, so don't call that domain layer directly. Actually they can call application layer, and application talk to that implementation layer. Okay, so let's get started. Okay, so what are required in this layer? So yes, so first we have to create services. Okay, so let's create a folder services, so that we can abstract uh, our implementation. So service, this is services, and in this service I create a block service. So first create a interface, just call as a interface. I blog service, block services. Okay, just change it to public, and now, okay, now we have to declare some method is declaration. So what performance we have to, what perform we have to do over here. So we have to create same like get all, method, get all block, get by block, create block, update block. Okay, so this is abstraction layer. So this will call in our like core the infrastructure layer, the implementation layer, and this will give it to data. So this is pure abstraction, and also it is dependent, this is actually dependent on the core layer, core domain layer. So just add that namespace. So bring that core, okay, dependent domain layer, as well as that our infrastructure layer. Okay, so just adding over there, so that we can call our we can inject our repository. So just bring the entities first. Okay, so this is done. This is straightforward. Also, as of now, this is a basic, so that's why I passed that on in a block, I mean that the core entity. So this is not a good idea as well, like, so this is a basic, that's why I using this one. But yeah, in later when we create another session for that using the advanced like CQRS or some mediator stuff, so that's time actually it should be called in this now in this layer, that DTO actually, not DTO, like is it a model, and that model convert to DTO, and then send it to our that domain or infrastructure layer. Okay, so interact to that layer, so that's fine, then we'll do later. Okay, now create the implementation as well, this abstraction. So the blog service, a blog service, and then I blog service, just implement the default implementation. Okay, sorry, I think this is not right. Okay, so just rename it, it is a just implementation, so just block service. Okay, and rename it, so that I can rename everywhere, and also just implement inherit to iBlog interface and that bring them namespace uh, iBlog services. Okay, that is a wrong name. Also, I can change it by a typo mistake. Oh no, not a like way. So if you go to here, so it will change everywhere. Okay, service. Okay, so this is the changing over here, and finally just implement the default stuff. Okay, so this is fine. This is I am implementing our services. So what need to do, we can inject our uh, repository. Okay, so core repository. So where is our core repository? Our core repository is here. Okay, so let's inject. Okay, so inject here, then just initiate that stuff, and then finally I can call that this blog a repository dot get can create everything we can call the from the implementation. Okay, so just bring the code because I don't waste the time writing a code. It is a very simple one line code. So just call create and just change it to async sync. Okay, this is fine. Then delete. Similar fashion we have to do, just call to that dependencies that inject our services. Okay, and then call that delete. Similar we have to call method, that one is sync. Okay, and get all in, and then delete async. Okay, and then finally update it. Okay, so this is enough, and yeah, sync. Okay, so simple, like call our our initialize method over here, initialize repository, and inject the repository and initialize, and then call that all the method get post pull it delete everything. Okay, so this is done. Okay, so that application layer also done. Okay, now what we have to do, we have to actually you know interact our UI. Okay, this application layer talked with the UI. Okay, that user interface. So that we'll do in the next session. Okay, so this session is, as of now, this session is sufficient for this implementation. Okay, and so thank you, have a nice day, and please don't forget to subscribe, like, and share. Okay, bye. Hello everyone, welcome back again to my channel, and this is the last session of this series. So finally we have created all the first I create a project architecture with along with the user interface, and then we create domain layer, then we have created actually that infrastructure layer, then we have implemented application layer. So all the layer is done. Now we have to implement then our UI to that application layer. Okay, so before moving, first we have to understand like what are the content actually that user interface representation layer. So this layer interact with the user and handles the HTTP request and response. Okay, and it is depend the application layer, and it's contain the controller view model and UI related components. Okay, so it is depend like if you using a UI API, so API or web application, so like that. But yeah, we'll later will implement actually the many interface, like this is a web API, but we'll implement MVC web application, then we'll implement a Blazor web application. Okay, so also we'll create a console user interface. Okay, so that how we can interact in our this clean architecture every application, so that you can understand. Okay, so that would be our next lesson or the future lessons. Okay, So now let's get started. So before that, actually we have implement everything. Okay, so let's first rebuild. Okay, so that we can make sure, okay, everything is built or compiled. Okay, so this is build. Okay, let's zoom out. Okay, and just this one. So let's zoom in, and now what we can do, we have to uh, implement. Okay, so first what can do, we can delete the default one. Okay, so default that weather forecast or weather forecast controller. Okay, okay, so here one, actually before we start, first we have to resolve some dependency. Okay, so what is the dependency? So dependency we can call over here, actually, like, see, we have created many layer. Okay, so many layer has a, all the layer has a own dependency, like this block context. Okay, so block context, dependent on this, block repository implementation, and also that block repository also we have inject in our, application. So those are dependency we have to resolve. So in our API or, .NET Core, it's a great feature give us for this, resolve the dependency in the program.cs file. So here the container we can just resolve the dependency. So first dependency of our DP context. So first what we can do, we can just resolve our dependency of the DB context. So let's get started for that. So uh, okay, let's bring the code, because this is a little bit long line. Okay, so that I don't want to waste the time, because I already explained this, how we can API created API, and how we can, that resolve the dependency in other videos for the beginner. Okay, so you can go and check out my YouTube channel. So let's bring that. Okay, so I use the builder services add DB context. Okay, and this add DB context actually resolve our dependency for that DB context. Okay, and this is our that name, DB context name. So what we can do, we have to, adding some, some reference. Okay, so just add reference of the domain application layer and infrastructure layer. So it is not a dependent on the, domain layer. It is not a reference adding for this UI. Okay, so just call this application layer, application talk, actually the infrastructure layer. Okay, outer layer. So let's add it. Okay, and one more thing we have to add it, the tools. But that tools, yeah, one more tools, actually, that entity framework tool, so that we can execute that add update migrations. Okay, so let's bring that namespace as well, entity framework tools. So entity framework core, where is the tool, find the tool, just looking for tools. Okay, let's frame the tool. Okay, so see here the entity framework, the tool install, and that is done. Okay, so let's save it, program. Okay, now see, it is there. And now bring that DB context class. Okay, so this is that bring, this is the namespace. Okay, and there actually contain that our block DB context, and using this one, so again bring the namespace of SQLite of that entity framework code. Okay, that is sufficient. And also what need to do, we have to create one connections. Okay, so that DB connection. So where I can do that, go to app.settings, and here we can create our DB connection. So let's create a DB connections. Okay, so copy, paste it over here. Okay, so this is, I mentioned that connection string and then block DB context. Okay, copy state that and make sure like it is saved over here. Okay, and also I just first trying to connect. If it is not, then throw the exception. Okay, so this is one which is done. Okay, this one is done. Now we have to resolve dependency for this blog repository as well as the service repository. So how we can do that? Simply builder services dot add transients. There's a three mechanisms to register, so this time I will use based on your preference. So I'll use that I blog repository and blog repository. Okay, that implementation. So that is done. Then again add transient. Okay, so I blog services, then blog service. Okay, so that is done. Something is the problem. Okay, the db not context. Okay, it is a blog repository. Okay, so why my mistake? So just change it to this. So this is done, and then bring the namespace. Yes, the repository. Okay, this is fine. Okay, this is done. So let me rebuild and make sure everything is working. There is no, yeah, see, this is the rebuild. Okay, so now the last things we have to pending, just migration. Okay, so how we can do the migration so that our db can create it or data. So go to tools, go to NuGet package manager and open that package manager console, or you can go to package console direct here as well. Okay, so what you have to do, just try to migrate, like add migration. So add mig and just tab, so that you can see there's a whole name, command name is there, the initial one. Okay, then start. Definitely I will get a error. Okay, so that's because I know this is error, that's why I not resolve, because definitely when you try, so definitely you will get this error. And so let's zoom it so that you can understand what is that. Okay, what is saying? It is saying the clean API does not match your migration assembly clean dot infrastructure. Okay, so our migration context is where, in this here clean architecture project. So what you need to do, just change our project name over here. So here actually our migration is there. So let's add again, hit one more time, and now see it is success. And you will see the entity is there, table is there, and also if you go to there, so see this is generating, this is also generating. Okay, and now final command you have to do update database. So update tab database and then hit. Okay, so now this is done. Okay, it is generating, and also you to see the db also generating. Okay, so oh sorry, so let one more time and control c db generated. Okay, if you want to make sure like how the table is generating or not, let's open your SQLite db tools, or you can go to Visual Studio. Okay, or not Visual Studio, VS Code, or you can check it. Okay, remove this one. Okay, and then add whatever our source path. So go to there, clean architecture. So go to there, open folder path explorer, and our data is there. Open here and change it to folder. Okay, so that, yeah, see this is that one which is we just created. Select, open, and just double click and see our data is, our column, our table is created. Okay, so as of now we can check there should not nothing. Okay, and now we have to implement actually. Okay, so our controller, because the migration or structure everything is stable, So now dependency also resolved. So now we have to implement and use that application service. Okay, so how we can do that? Controller API, and use the add controller, use that controller name application, or it is a blog, and then add. Okay, so now controller is ready, just inject. Okay, I already explained everything, this API, how we can control, how can create a controller directly without writing a code, or also the one by one, like get, post, delete, everything. So go to my videos, also check out. Now create a controller, it here, and go to application, copy this one. Okay, because this we need to inject and we can use it, and then injected, and just bring that initiate that services. Okay. And now, okay, now, okay, so now we can inject it also. So now we can just create all the endpoints. Okay, so that we can do very easily, already everything explained. So right now I'm not going to create details, just I just copy paste, so that I can quickly, we can as quick as much we can create it all the endpoints. Okay, so this is get endpoint, just inject service and get that method similar to get by id, and similar to create, similar to put. Okay, and similar to delete. Okay, so this is done. Okay, so it is very straightforward, like I initially inject and that initialize that object, and then just call all the method. Okay, this is fine. And let's get run our application. Let's first, before that, rebuild. Okay, and then start and test it, like it is working ever expected or not. Okay, okay, yes, so now it is done. And now see, our this API is exposing, and now just try execute. See, there's no data. Also, we can debug very easily. So let's bring that debugger point over here. It one more time. Okay, it one more time. Debugger point is there. Okay, so see, is there. There is a no block. Okay, also it will call, where it's will call, it will go to implement. If you go to implementation, it is called the block services. Okay, and then block service call to our repository. Okay, so like this way actually flow is working. Now it's nothing, and now trying to post some data so that we can make sure our uh, add, update, delete, everything functionality is working. So test one. Okay, just execute. Test two, just execute. Okay, and now check it, execute. Okay, now this time check. Yeah, now it's two data is available from the dv, and I can get it from there. See, okay, so now expected, I think the every method will work, there's no issue. Okay, now let me check in db as well, like the data is getting pop, it's storing as db or not. So see, the data is db as well. Okay, so this is a very clean architecture, this is a clean, or basic for the basic, so that you can easily try to learn, so that the next time when I come with this advanced topic of the clean architecture, so you can understand very well, okay, like how we can initially we have created and what is that actually. And finally the next session will come with how we can create a how we can create docker image and docker container, so that we can deploy very easily to our server. Okay, So as a microservice we can use it like if I create a docker file. Okay, so that also will create very minimal step without writing anything. So keep watching. Thank you, have a nice day, and don't forget to subscribe.